Hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk to y'all a little bit about that weird feeling you get when you see an advertisement. Am I supposed to buy a product or go march in a protest? So we're going to talk a little bit about the state of advertising. We'll show you a few. Today I'm going to focus a little bit more on like a climate change component about this, just because it's some of the work that I'm doing. And then we'll have some fun, and y'all will learn how to write an ad. So let me just see if this clicker works. So traditionally, advertising, right? You're trying to sell something. You're trying to sell products, consumer goods. Another form of advertising is brand awareness, brand protection. Say your company is in crisis, you may need to do this feel-good ad about, we're a good company, don't hate us. And then there's advocacy, all the political ads you see all the time during campaign seasons. It's all day, every day. You can't really get away from it. Today, these are all kind of blurred. Corporations are selling an image, they're selling their brand, they're making advocacy statements, they're making political statements, and also still trying to sell their products. And unfortunately, the dialogue is really sort of a lot less elegant and intellectual than Jay and Mr. Buckley. It's really kind of appealing to a lower IQ level. Intentionally, and that's just the state that we're in. So Edward Bernays is kind of considered the father of modern day PR, and he really coached clients on selling a feeling. So people don't really go buy and purchase things based on what they need. They purchase things based on a feeling, like, I want to be rich and famous, or have a nice house, or drive a nice car, or be fit. It's really that feeling that you're selling. That's really kind of come through all along. He's started this concept about 100 years ago, but it's really even more prevalent today, which I think is sort of an important distinction. And as you all are going off into careers and developing communication strategies for the organizations that you work for, sort of that distinction of what we all like to say is woke, versus just corporate responsibility. And I think there's really like an important distinction, because there are societal challenges, cultural challenges, and I think it's important for companies and brands to go out there and make statements and do things about that. That's totally okay. That's actually encouraged. It's also something that their investors and their shareholders really want them to do more of. So that's a good thing. But the difference is sort of like responding to this loud activism that we see. It's really prevalent a lot in racial and gender debates that we see, but from our perspective, I think it rings true in the climate dialogue as well. It really tends to be more of a left-leaning, progressive statement. Oftentimes, you really aren't seeing a lot of big companies go out and make a bold sort of like conservative-leaning mind statement about a product or an advocacy. I would say, when you're creating that division and being a little bit divisive in nature, you need to think this way or act this way and purchase our stuff, and that's a good thing. If you don't do it, you're a bad person. Whereas, the good corporate responsibility advertising, they want to be unifying. There's a way to do that when you're communicating with people. You can make a statement, but you don't have to single out and make one side or another a bad person. And then I think it's just a lot of pandering, right? So we see it all the time. It's political pressure, it's the advocacy, the protests, the marches, all of these things that we all live every day on college campuses and big cities. Corporations are really trying to take that and be part of it. And it's really become kind of a strategy as, instead of just getting that 30-second ad on TV, you want to create a 30-second ad on TV that also gets talked about on Twitter and brought up in the late-night talk shows and 24-hour cable news. That's what they're going for. So they try to be these sort of controversial, divisive, but to sort of sort that out is an important thing, and sort of, as a consumer, to sort of understand the distinction, but then as you're working in jobs, to sort of, be able to sort of stand up and say, look, this may be a little bit dishonest. Maybe there's a better way and a little more unifying way to talk about this. A couple examples I like to cite when we're talking about this of some good examples. of corporate responsibility. You may recall a couple years ago, Gerber, which is a well-known baby food maker, they had their Gerber baby, which is decades old, of this iconic advertising figure. They had a baby with Down syndrome, which I think was incredibly powerful, bringing up an issue in our society that is important to talk about. Some that I think kind of missed the mark were a little more on the woke side. Gillette, the razor blade company, a lot of you probably remember that ad, a little over the top. Nike making Colin Kaepernick their spokesmodel. And the Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad, which was pretty famous, right? So not a great one. So I think there's ways to do it, right?
What was the Gillette ad for those who are ignorant?
So there was a Gillette ad. Gillette obviously is, for those of you who don't buy razor blades and shaving products, the best a man can get has historically been their ad slogan. They ran a pretty bad ad, I would say bad ad, about how there's bullying in schools and toxic masculinity and all these things, like basically all like the litany of the talking points of sort of the progressive woke culture. Threw it in an ad and said, like, that's not who we want to sell our razor blades to. Okay. And so it was just kind of this, like, threw all the buzzwords in one ad, and I don't know, I haven't tracked their sales necessarily, but I assume there's not a lot of options. I think there's more now, but that one was certainly over the top. So, like I said, the organization I work for, ClearPath, we do a lot of conservative clean energy policy and trying to take some of the political rhetoric out of the climate debate, bring some honesty to it, and sort of like how can we really approach this global challenge. So I'm going to focus that a little bit of some advertisements that I'll show you are more in the climate space. And then why don't we jump into a few of those. And then we can just have a couple, if you want to make comments about those. I'd say some of these are kind of good, some of them are okay, some of them not so good. So here's the first one. This is a Nissan.
The 100% electric Nissan Leaf. Innovation for the planet. Innovation for all.
A lot of emotion, right? You get to be friends with a polar bear if you drive a Nissan Leaf. That's awesome. Maybe a little over the top. I would say that one's probably somewhere in the middle of making a political statement. You're selling electric vehicles. A lot of the reasons these companies are going that direction is to get away from liquid transportation fuels. I don't know, does anybody have any thoughts on that? It's funny. I'd say it's pretty effective, yeah.
I love that ad. That is so good. Like, you can talk. Yeah, that was such a good ad. I like the hug at the end. That was the best. That was the best part. I thought he was going to attack him, but it was cute.
Effectiveness is also key when you're a big brand like this. And I tracked the sales of Nissan Leaf over the last several years. This is about a 5-year-old ad. I think they sold about 16,000 Nissan Leafs the year and the year after. Well, probably both years they sold 15,000, 16,000. Last year they sold about 9,000. Just in comparison in car sales, a Ford F-150 is probably the #1 selling car in America. They'll sell about 800,000 in a year. So in other words, this didn't really break through in car sales.
I think the thing that I appreciate about the hug is that it kind of subverts expectations. From the beginning, it's kind of this guilt rhetoric. We're very used to seeing these images of polar bears and everything disappearing and to make you feel bad. But then this is, actually, you can feel good. You can get a hug, you can get warmth. And in some ways it still maintains that kind of guilt part at the beginning, but it is interesting how they sort of turn it towards positive feelings at the end.
I think it would have served better to focus more on the actual product. Like it wasn't like.
This is a good car, it's affordable, gets you to work on time, yeah.
Even at the end, like I didn't know what it was selling. I mean, I knew it was selling the car. I didn't know what kind of car it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the brand from here.
Yeah, well, and just a good point, when you do this exercise and write your ad, there's really no dialogue, there was no narrative in this until the very end when they sell the tagline. So ads are a visual medium, so when you write a script, you can keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be very wordy. A lot of what you're trying to come up with is the visual. That's okay.
We can see it again. It's pretty good. But I thought it was very effective. So I grew up in Venezuela, and the biggest food company there, it's called Bolar. And they have the same bear, and the bear is in all the ads. I like humans better, but I guess animals are effective. And even I saw this CNN article some days ago, and the headline was China says that the panda bears are not going extinct anymore. And all the comments are yay, China. And I'm yeah, they're killing people, they're saving animals, but whatever. It's very effective. I could see why people react emotionally, and that emotion drives them towards the product. So I'll give the ad that.
Thank you. So I noticed again they didn't show anything about the car really until the end, and you couldn't really tell it was a car commercial until the last 5 seconds. And I was thinking about the reason for that, and the only guess I could come up with is when you're thinking about in terms of electric cars. I know nothing about the Nissan Leafs, but the electric car to get now, of course, is Tesla. That's what everyone has. That's what everyone's talking about it, performance-wise. From what I've heard about it, it seems fairly good. So I was wondering if that was a reason they're if we're going to sell electric cars, we should probably take it off the product and more about imaging and messaging.
Yeah.
Just interested on your take on that.
I think what you're starting to see more of in just advertising in general is that it's getting harder to sell the actual product, so you want to sell the brand and the feeling, and that's a very very much a tactic for advertisers.
I really liked the ad. I didn't think I would. I was the one laughing at the beginning, but at the end, what one of the commenters earlier said, that is the hug makes that twist into self-awareness that makes it kind of camp. This is actually very similar to the advertising behind Axe body spray, which was it was so over the top, and then it showed you that it was self-aware, right? Is that type? So I think that it gets away with it because it is self-aware, right? It says, hey, we know this is kind of a stretch, but this is a green car. Do you think that self-awareness still works to subvert expectations like that, or do you think that that's something that's 5-10 years old?
I personally don't. I think it's certainly what they're going for, and when you're doing the research that goes into an ad and coming up with the narrative and the script and the objective, that's the calculation. I'm not convinced that it works. I don't think, I haven't done a full study of all the brands and all the different industries, but I don't think that there's anybody that would go out and say that sort of that self-aware tactic really is leading to more sales. Should we go to the next one? There's about 5 more, so we can have some fun reacting to multiple of these. And some of them are not companies like this one.
Global warming. Some say irreversible consequences are 30 years away. 30 years? That won't affect me.
scary, right? So there's often ads that you'll see that are not, a brand or a company, but, the Ad Council does them on behalf of advocacy, nonprofits. Oftentimes that .org probably is going to go to a page that has a big donate button, so they probably raised a bunch of money for advocacy from this ad. Any reaction?
And we'll just quickly, you can kind of just shout it out because we're
Yeah,
running out of time, so you can just
I
kind of
can
give
hear you
initial
out.
reactions, that's fine.
That reminds me of that Nixon ad we talked about in the governor race before, where he said, like, the world is going to end if you elect this guy, and the nuke is going to land, and it's going to kill the little girl who's playing in the field. Like, they're really going for, like, a nuclear war thing.
Yeah, fear works in advocacy and in politics, not so much in the consumer brand side.
Yeah.
I get the message and like why it's somewhat effective, but I also think it's just a little bit too much. Like I get that the whole point is that people don't want to see like a little girl get run over by a train, but it's just a little bit too much for me personally. So I don't know
Agree.
how it is.
Let's go to the next one.
You have the power to make a difference from the moment you wake up. Power your home with the sun. Refresh with a low-flow shower. Feels good. Air dry your laundry instead of tumbling. Eat more leftovers and reuse a humble bag. Leave the car and use your legs. In a rush? Take the bus. Become an expert recycler. Easy peasy. Enjoy fresh local produce. Make the things you love last longer. And give old treasures a second life. Good friends, they could last forever. For 0 food miles, grow your own. For an extra quick meal, use a pressure cooker and induction hob. Eat more greens. Why not try some veggie balls? Choose a low-flow tap. Power up your car with clean power. Power down your heating or aircon. All you need is great insulation. And LEDs? Always a bright idea. What a difference a day makes.
Basically, we're IKEA, change your life. Do everything the way I tell you to do it. I would say that's probably more on the woke side, where it's sort of reacting to where we're at, and a very serious, important thing to talk about with all these little things that you can do in your day that really aren't going to change the world and save the world. Very little on their products. I think some of their product placement was in the ad, but it wasn't a big, we make good, affordable products. It was selling you on an idea.
Basically, it was just like reject modernity, go back to living in local communities and buying from the regular market. So I don't really know how that was supposed to sell me on IKEA products.
I mean, IKEA sells chairs, so why would they put in advertisement not to buy chairs?
That was the confusing part for me too. Yeah.
But it's like you said about playing into like the big, loud political activism that's currently popular. So they're investing more in the happy feeling of their brand, of that IKEA is so, I don't know, low carbon emission, but intrinsically they're wanting you to buy their new products, which goes against what they're saying.
Let's go to the next one.
This is due to hope. What can businesses do to help fight the climate crisis?
This is Amazon.
I've got a few ideas.
Ich hätte so einige Ideen.
Alcune idee ce le ho.
Use wind or solar, or both.
Go all electric faster. I dare you.
¿Por qué no siembras más árboles en vez de cortarlos?
部屋でできるなら地元でも育てられる。
Do more sustainable farming. It's a thing now. Protegge mi agua.
Mi state facendo preoccupare per i miei nipoti. E neanche ho figli.
I'm only 6. You figure it out.
What's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah.
What are you waiting for?
Climate change affects all of
Where am I
us.
gonna live if you mess up the planet? Asking.
This is your chance to do something good.
this is where a brand goes into advocacy, and they've created this whole like getting other people to make a pledge rather than like we're going to advertise our products, trying to sell that feeling. And I don't know. I'm curious, a couple thoughts on this, and then we'll go on to the next one.
I really hated it for that reason. It was using this big company, Amazon, to like prop up these people from around the world to like guilt me into doing this.
And nothing about what we're doing as Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Like, they are doing some things, but it had nothing on what they're going to actually do.
I was gonna say, if the target's for adults, I feel like adults don't really like getting yelled at by kids.
It's a little Greta Thunberg-ish, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got from it. So I don't know how effective it is for like an adult watching it.
And the guy who was like, I'm worried about my grandkids, and I don't even have kids.
Yeah.
Really? Is that what you're worried about?
Yeah.
I mean, all the woke advertising feels like kind of a con, right? It's because the companies that are the worst violators are also telling you that it's the problem, right? So by telling you, they come across as someone who is aware of it and therefore doing something about it, right? Like
That's the goal. Yeah.
That's what
Yep.
gets me the most is like they don't make that like people who just I guess taking the ad on passing don't quite get that, right? Once we're sitting here watching it, we understand, oh, these guys are just telling you what they do, right? Not fixing the problems they make. That's what like kind of gets me.
Let's go to the next one.
I suck.
I may not look like I suck, but I do.
Van Jones sucks.
I've been sucking on TV since I was 10.
Everywhere I could suck, I would suck.
I've sucked in over 90 countries.
Democrats, Republicans, independents, we all suck.
You know who else sucks? Kendrick Sampson.
I'm Kendrick Sampson, and I suck.
We suck together.
Sure, I've sucked, but Yuna sucks even more.
Yuna sucks.
And I suck.
And I suck.
And I suck. When someone tweets, I suck, I'm like, I know.
Statistically speaking, most of us suck. Most of us suck every day. Suck, suck, suck.
Suck.
Today, you probably used one of these.
500 million plastic straws are used in this country
every single day.
And many end up in the ocean, polluting water and killing sea life.
If we don't act now, by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish.
You know, like you go snorkeling, you look down, and you don't see fish, you see plastic.
But there's something you can do about it.
I will stop sucking.
I will stop sucking.
We will all stop sucking.
We will all stop sucking.
If you do.
It's a popular
Hashtag
tactic, right?
stop sucking.
Get the celebrities, get Hollywood involved, and sell the message. Not necessarily climate change, although I think plastic waste and pollution is really tied to climate change. Recycling, I think, is in there. It's sort of the plastic straw ban was a lot of fun. You know, we can't even drink our coffee from Starbucks now. Not a big fan of the paper straws personally. So we'll show you one more here.
It's only human to pursue the elusive, while also capturing the possibilities, even something like CO2. Over the last decade, Chevron has spent over $1 billion on carbon capture projects and is investing in startup companies working to transform carbon into new forms of energy.
Anyone thoughts on the Chevron ad?
I thought it was actually the best ad we've seen. It's just, I don't know how effective it is because the overwhelming media narrative against fossil fuel companies is just so powerful. I really don't know if they can overcome it. But that one clip showed that to someone who's already skeptical of the whole media coverage of the whole issue, and saying that, well, we should just bankrupt all these fossil fuel companies. That's enough to maybe push them over the edge to the other side.
Yeah, good points. A couple things. So I agree. I think this is, where corporate social responsibility sort of hits the nail on the head. They're aware. They're, fossil fuel industry. They are creating a lot of CO2 emissions, but they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're investing millions, billions, capturing tons of carbon. But they're also sort of bringing that emotion of the girl chasing the butterfly. So Chevron's not a big consumer brand company, but an ad like this is sort of responding probably to shareholder activism. If I would have had to guess and was in a board meeting there, they're not a client, I swear. But yeah, I agree. I thought that was a pretty good ad. Did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I thought it was good that they used the soft voice for the narration along with the butterfly and make it like it's a weird dynamic, the oil and gas company using butterflies and a really soft narrator voice to get their point across. But like you said, given the amount they donated that they're actually backing up, I thought it was effective.
I thought it was clever how they used that to tie to the innovation aspect. So like she's exploring and whatever, and then that's how they tie in the follow the butterfly, and they're trying to be innovative in order to counter fossil fuels. So I thought that was interesting how they use that narrative as a storyline transition.
Somebody else have a hand up. Well, so let's see. So when you're writing an ad, you just really need to focus on a short, tight message. So what's your objective? Are you going to sell a product? Are you trying to make your brand a better, stronger brand? Who's your audience? Are you selling and marketing to suburban moms, to Gen Z? Who's your audience? And then where are you putting the ad? Are you going to put it on? Are you going to put it on the news networks? Are you going to put it on ESPN? Are you going to put it on the Hallmark Channel? Are you going to run a really aggressive Instagram campaign? And those are the things when you're writing an ad, like what to think about. And so just to kind of get you started, I'm going to, big ad agencies, they do a lot of storyboarding, but there's really kind of a basic way to get going. And it's just on your pieces of paper, just sort of make 2 columns. And so the left-hand side, the script, the words, the voiceover, the narratives that you're hearing. And then on the right-hand side, what are some of those beautiful images and visuals that can go with it? Just for the sake of this exercise, pick one of your favorite companies or a company you know about from working or studying, and what should that company's climate change message be? That's the exercise. And I'm gonna be around, so if you have questions, we'll spend about 10 minutes or so writing the ad, just for awareness and sort of the length. You saw some of those are 1 sentence. A 30-second ad is the most common. That's about enough time for 75 words, which is a couple sentences, about a paragraph. So it needs to be just a pretty tight, sharp message. But again, it could be shorter. You're also seeing a lot of advertisements going to 15 seconds or 6 seconds. The YouTube and Hulu ads, you get a little 6-second ad, so you're, half a sentence or a sentence. So don't think about, you need to write a big essay here. Just a couple concise messages, sentences, and then what are some visuals that could go with it.
We have a free table here, so if y'all want to just fill in the tables, we're going to just move you. That way we have 6 groups total. So anywhere there's a white bag on the chair, there's a free spot. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So right here, we'll just scooch that over a little bit for you. I have one right here we can fill in. And then there are a couple up there at the front table on the left where y'all can fill in. You can sit here if you want. And then, perfect. Okay, so you have about 10 minutes for this part. So, you work together as a group to do the ad, so collaborate, share ideas, have maybe one person who's going to present, who's taking notes and can kind of come up and talk about it.
Projects.
Okay, this is your 5-minute warning. You have about 5 more minutes. One more minute, one more minute.
That is like,
I had thought of since I was little.
All right, how's everyone doing? Are we about ready? Everyone ready? Okay, here, Luke, I'll give you this. You want to just walk around a bit? Okay, who wants to go first? Let's see here. Who's presenting? Who feels like they've nailed it? Should we start here?
Any volunteers to go first? Be brave.
I think this middle table looks like they're really ready to go. So who wants to present here? Who wants to share with the group? Over here? Okay, all right. Okay.
Let's go first.
Over, do we see here?
So just tell us which company or I think was it this table?
This table?
Who?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Tell us the company and then why, maybe a little bit about what you were thinking and then read us the script. And then after that, you can tell us the visuals that will go along with it.
Okay. So we are representing Home Depot. And the idea behind this is that there's this correlation between what Home Depot is doing to help the environment and what Home Depot can help other people do through their products to build their own things to help the environment in their own homes. So the only part of our script is, solving climate change starts with us. And it begins with an executive saying that. And there is it describes the way in which we do not use shipping from outside places, international shipping, but we try to source our products in the United States and how that decreases climate change, images of shipping versus hardworking Americans. And then someone on the floor of a Home Depot wearing the Home Depot apron saying, climate change starts with us, maybe repairing something in the Home Depot, making it more energy efficient, or making the office buildings more energy efficient, or helping other people. And then you have a Home Depot consumer who's sort of building a garden in their backyard to help climate change, and they have Home Depot bags and they've been using Home Depot products. Climate change starts with us, they say. And then at the end, black screen, white text. Climate change starts with us, and then 2 dots appear inside the us, so it's also US.
That's good. And then you launch a website and you get the social campaign going and you've got the whole campaign.
Yes, it's the idea is that being for the country and being for climate change aren't necessarily diametrically opposed, but can come together through Home Depot. Yes.
A couple things that you picked up there that I didn't remark that were great. Using a CEO is pretty powerful in a lot of advertising. There's a lot of research out there on who we as consumers trust. And year in and year out, the CEO of a brand ranks pretty high. So when the CEO is out there talking about something, they must really be invested in that concept or that product. So that was good. And then the other thing is bringing in personas, which is the characters of the ad. Is it a child? Is it the person that's working at the backyard project at home, sort of like that, how do I relate to that person? And so you brought in both of those, this is really good. Who's next? Snapple, right?
So we have an ad for Snapple. Snapple recently switched from the glass bottles to these 100% recyclable bottles. So our ad starts with a girl in high school with earbuds in. She has very alternative emo fashion, walks up to the vending machine, very just tired high school student, orders a Snapple, grabs it, walks into a classroom, scene changes, she's now in college, much older, very, very different fashion, sits down at her desk, plops down this new Snapple image, and we say, your style has changed, so has ours. Snapple has switched to 100% recycled plastics, completely 85% less material, completely recyclable. Snapple, best stuff on earth, inside and out.
That's a good ad. That's a good ad. One thing that you guys pulled in is a story, and you saw it in some of the ads. It's sort of like, somebody going from a young person to an adult. There's a story there, and it's really relatable. And when you're an audience member, so it's a good ad. Who's next?
Over here. You guys ready? All right, here. All right. Here we go. Thank you.
So we did an ad for Nike. You can guess the script. Just do it. But it starts with soft and swelling music. And then it's the Olympic season, right? So it's rather fitting to have a series of famous Olympic athletes doing their thing. We see somebody running down the track and someone throwing a discus or someone dunking a basketball hoop or doing like some gymnastic twirl. But then it runs through meanwhile they're all saying like, just do it. But then you see that he's not just running to the finish line, but there's a recycling can and he's chucking something in the recycling can. And then the discus guy actually was throwing something into the recycling can and dunking the bottle or something into the basketball hoop. And then at the end, you see the screen where it normally says Nike, just do it, and it says Nike, just recycle. And that is how Nike supports recycling.
I like it.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to go? Did you go with the algae?
So our idea was our own car company called Atlas, and we're starting off the commercial with a kid looking at muscle cars in one of those summer festivals and loving it. And years later, he's looking at the dorm room and he sees all these algae filling the oceans and kids crying because they can't swim in it because they're sucking up the oxygen and there's dead fish. And so he comes up with an idea. He's like, why don't we let these algae stop going to waste, and if they can kill you, let them be good enough to use for energy. And it's a biodiesel company for new cars, more powerful than electric, if that makes sense. So.
That's great. I love the entrepreneurship too, starting your own company.
Who has it? Who's presenting? Yep, myself.
Okay, we did an ad for Marriott. The audio is just kind of like simple, uncontroversial piano solo. And it starts with people doing kind of like everyday things they do in a hotel. So they're like turning on the water or turning on and off lights, that kind of stuff, like putting their suitcase in the bed, just like, and it's kind of like cacophonous or whatever. And then it's going to transition to like a Marriott logo in a very like idyllic place, like the beach side or something like that. And then it's more like smiling, calm people, and they're like using like eco-friendly light bulbs and like low pressure faucets and like stuff like that. And then it will end with someone like obviously like leaving the hotel with like their bag, and they'll like turn off the light. Like it will definitely like zoom into like his hand turning off the light. And then just like a black screen, it says, because one of Marriott's slogans is we put people first. So it'll end with, at Marriott, we put people and their futures first.
Great. And the connection with the person is, that was really powerful. Just fun fact, buildings and power generation is about 1/3 of carbon emissions in the US. Globally, it's probably higher. So going after like a big brand with a lot of big carbon footprint, that's impactful. All right, last but not least, I think.
So, who's presenting?
Okay, so we have a Spanish guitar. The company is Driscoll. That is a produce manufacturing company. It's sunrise, you're walking through the fields, strawberry fields to be specific. The sun is rising, you're somewhere in Central California. And we have a drone that's going over and looking at the strawberry fields, zooms in on the field workers, migrant communities that are a huge factor because culture sells, that are inhaling these harmful pesticides that transfer from the fields to the manufacturing plants to where they're packaged to the grocery stores. The pesticides travel. You have people coughing who are working in the fields, picking the strawberries, to the manufacturing plants still inhaling the pesticides. Pesticides are bad for the environment. Driscoll's new, innovative, and climate-friendly organic pesticide is going to reduce the impact that is harmful to the people who are picking the strawberries, to the people who are packing the strawberries, and to where they get to the grocery store. And there will no longer be plastic Driscoll packaging boxes, but rather a biodegradable box for the strawberries.
That's great. I have a 1.5-year-old, and she loves strawberries, and my wife would start buying your strawberries after that. Does anybody have any comments, questions? I don't know, how are we doing on time, Amanda? Okay. Was that hard? You guys all came up with a script and an ad in a short amount of time. We didn't go into like the political advertising, but sometimes you don't have the benefit of storyboarding and research and focus groups because maybe your political opponent said something at a debate the night before and you want to get an ad up the next day, so you've got to write it really quick. So coming up with creativity on the spot it's a good skill to learn. It's obviously in the advertising space, but I think in general, and also the same is in corporate America too. That's a lot of these ads are very, very researched. You do polling and market testing, and then you do focus grouping, and we were talking about personas and who is in the ad, and sort of like when you're going to market to somebody, you create these personas, and that's who you have as your character, right? So if it's the mother wanting to give her 1.5-year-old daughter good clean strawberries, or the Home Depot ad, I think there's a lot of behind the scenes research and effort that goes into developing that exact character. So it's a fun field to be in. Like I said, it's you got to kind of dumb things down. Unfortunately, you get to you have to speak in short sound bites and messages, and then use the visuals as your storytelling ability, and instead of the really good quality intellectual stuff that National Review is doing. But this is part of our culture, and it's not going away. And the more you all get out into the world and can kind of like bring some common sense into this and not make it a big political advocacy thing. I mean, this would be personally saying this, but I don't know that it's great in general as we go on, that corporations are making everything sort of blurring the lines of their consumer goods and political advocacy. But I think you all are going to go on and be big ad executives soon. I don't know if that's the goal or not, but this is good ads. I like all of them.
We have time for a few questions, comments, feedback.
What's the quickest you've turned an ad around? How does that go when you have a candidate on the campaign trail and there's a debate the night before trying to get the message out?
So when I worked in politics and on campaigns and I think less than 24 hours. So script, you got to get the script right and nail it first, but then you're also relying on a lot of people. So you've got to hire a voiceover talent to read the narrative. A lot of thought goes into that. Do you want a female voice? Do you want a male voice? Do you want sort of like a gruff, like sort of country sounding voice, or like a very sophisticated, smart person? So like write the script, then you find the voiceover, so you've got that. And then you rely on your ad agency to produce. So, in political season, they've got to be like on call pretty much at all time. I'd say the quickest I ever did one was, I won't bore you with what the ad was. It was a little salacious probably, but I think it was effective. We moved numbers with it. 24 hours. And we had it on TV the next night. So the opponent said something, I think it was a Facebook comment. We took it, clipped it, add some really scary imagery, and put it on an ad and had it up on the evening news the next night.
Feedback on each other's ads.
How does that work? Do you already have the ad space paid for and ready to go? You just
Yep. So ad buying is a big industry. So when you're running a campaign, or if you have a corporation, you're in touch with all the different stations and networks, and you reserve time. So if you're on a campaign at the beginning of the quarter, I know I have $2 million in the bank, I'm going to go reserve $750,000 on these stations, and you have time. So you can fill it with an existing ad, or you can swap it out, So acting quick and nimble, you also have to have the relationship with the network so that you can call them at 8 a.m. and be like, I need this ad to run tonight. So there's a lot that goes into the ad buying itself. But on the political side, you usually reserve for months in advance. Corporates do that too. I mean, they obviously have much bigger budgets and are running ads nationwide, not just in a city or a state. And so they're buying big chunks of time for months.
So I hear a lot about in the political campaign about ads going negative, like what's the right time to do this. Like I was just interested in your opinion, like when is the right time for a candidate or campaign to go negative, or is there even a right time?
Not gonna like my answer. It's always the right time. Negative works. It's like you poll test throughout the day. Everybody hates it. The candidate doesn't want to do it. It's annoying for us as viewers, but it moves numbers. So general theory in politics is you want to build up your positive favorability. Same thing in corporate America. You want to build a favorable opinion of your company. So you're always going to want to do that positive first. But in politics, unfortunately, hate to be the bearer of bad news, the negative stuff works. That's why they do it.
So my question is, I'm sure many of you are familiar with cities like Golden Circle, Hawaii. Today it feels like they've taken that a little too far. So we've had a very big message, and then at the end, it's a company like Starbucks or something. And when you compare that to My Pillow, for example, it's just repetition and repetition, repetition. And by the sheet, by the pillow, whatever, the names everywhere. You have Mike Linnell. I'm sure the latter is more effective in sales, but the other one is more effective in creating a culture.
Yeah, I think one thing to think of as a viewer of ads, that culture is oftentimes responding to investor and shareholder desires or activism. So Chevron, there's probably a lot of big companies have shareholders, right? That they're responsible for keeping them all happy. There's a big shareholder meeting every year. Sometimes these activist investment funds go in and they try to take board seats. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Billions, but sort of along those lines where they go into the board meeting and they're like, hey, we bought enough of the shares of the company. We're a X% shareholder. We need you as the company to be better on climate. And so a brand oftentimes is responding to that shareholder, and sort of they need to project their brand in a positive way to appease them, because that's really who, your consumers are one thing and your customers are one thing, but shareholders drive a lot of this. And that's all very much behind the scenes, and we would never know that. But a lot of it's driven that way, whereas I think My Pillow's not publicly traded. They don't have he has investors probably, but not shareholders, which is different. And so he doesn't have to worry about that. He can just go sell stuff. It's a really interesting concept that a lot of ad makers and PR firms and people are analyzing right now, and there doesn't seem to be a big dip in sales when a company goes further left, progressive, whereas they might see some small increases in sales with certain audiences when they do that. And I don't know if it's the way consumers that are lean conservative think. I don't know, but there doesn't seem to be a huge net downside when they've taken a step to the left. And I think that's why they feel more comfortable doing it. I don't think anybody can really put their finger on it just yet. I think it's probably more along the lines of their executives may feel strongly, they may feel like they want to have a big, strong voice and, hey, I'm a big company and I have a loud microphone and this is personally important. I want to do this, and then somebody down the rung, and then it gets to the advertising team, and it's like, hey, the CEO really cares about this, and we gotta advertise on it. But in terms of just like the actual, people are starting to study it, and I don't think there's like a great amount of data out there to know that it's impacting one way or another. I think it's probably more just like consumer trends in general. Like if, Nike, a lot of people probably didn't like the Kaepernick thing. A lot of people probably did and may have acted with, how they purchased in that way. But, that's just a trend. Like people are going to more different startup brands that they can buy off their Instagram ad. And so I think it's more market trends than actual content of the woke stuff. But I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think we're done. Thank you all.